And we are back. Power Rankings, Week 12 edition. We're going to get right into this one. I'm sorry if things suck. My phone has been acting up today. This is actually my fourth time recording this, so we're just trying to get through it. 32, we have the Raiders going to be staying the same. They ended up losing their game in kind of Raider fashion. They were in the game the whole game. And then they just lost. It was one of those where they were really never going to win, but they also were never really ruled out. So it was kind of one of those where they could win, but they're probably not going to. They ended up losing 34-19 to the Dolphins, so I respect their effort for staying in it. However, it was not enough to move them up a spot. 31, we have the Giants down staying the same. They won a bye week, but who knows what could happen with them. They got Tommy Cutlets going forward, so Daniel Jones, your time's up. Number 30, we got the Jaguars down 8 spots. Scorigami, but for the wrong reason for them. 52-6 to the Lions. Nothing was happening. They weren't scoring on offense. They weren't doing anything on defense. I mean, that was just one game where you were going to lose. And you lost. And you lost. So, yeah. There's nothing to talk about with them. On to the next team. 29, we got the Cowboys. Down 6 spots. Now, I do have to give the Cowboys effort. They did end up losing 34-10 to the Texans. Yada, yada, yada. However, they were down 20-10 entering the fourth quarter. And they were keeping up with the Texans. So, it's kind of one of those where they never really were out of that game until the very end. So I give them huge credit for that. However, was not enough to win. So because of that, yeah. 28, we have the Jets. They're going to be staying the same. They ended up losing 28-27 or something like that. Yeah. To the Colts. And what sucks for the Jets is they were, in that fourth quarter up 2 scores and they just weren't able to get the job done. They ended up falling just short at the very end. And, well, that's going to hurt you guys. Because that, in my opinion, is kind of the killing blow. I don't think you're making the playoffs now. You're going to need a miracle if you want to. And, well, I just don't think you guys are going to get a miracle. I'm sorry. 27, we have the Titans. They ended up losing their game 23-13 to the Vikings. However, they, kind of the same thing as the Raiders. They were never really out of it. They were hanging in there the whole time, so I got to respect them for that. Albeit they didn't look great, just like the Raiders. They were hanging in there, so huge respect to them. It sucks that you weren't able to get it done. You are going up 3 spots, though, because I believe you, even with that loss, was good enough to jump you up 3 spots. So, yeah. 26, we had the Browns staying the same. They ended up losing 35-14 to the Saints in a game where, in my opinion, I think they could have been in the same situation. They ended up missing costly field goals, chip shots, and long kicks. They just couldn't hit from anywhere. And I think that was a huge momentum factor. And I don't want to say that's the reason they lost, but I think that's a huge reason why it was a close game at one point, and then next thing you know, it was not. So, yeah, sucks to say that. 25, we had the Patriots. They ended up staying the same, losing 28-22 to the Rams. In a game where, same thing, I think they could have won that game. The big issue for them is they kept allowing, big plays. Puka Nacua looked like one of the best receivers in the league. I mean, he is, but he looked better than, he has been. Cooper Kupp went for a 69-yard touchdown, which really just hurt you guys in a huge way, especially considering that was how the second half started. And I think if you were able to limit those big plays, limit the touchdowns to maybe even just field goals, maybe just one, you look at a different momentum factor, and I think you guys win that football game. I commend you guys for staying in it through everything that happened, but you lost for a reason. And I'm not going to sugarcoat that. 24, we had the Panthers. Next, they had a bye week. That's why we're skipping them. 23, we have the Dolphins up 4 spots. They pick up a nice win over the Raiders, 34-19, in a great situational football game. One of those where they got out to a lead and they just kind of held on, never looked back. A big concern, however, was that they didn't extend their lead, whether that be, them scoring or just not allowing the Raiders to score. They kind of just kept it the same distance, and I think that's a big issue. However, you, like I said, managed it well. Every time they scored, you'd combat it, so I don't really see any bad thing to note there. You won that game pretty convincingly, albeit the Raiders were never really out of it. There was also very little chance they were going to win that game. So great job by you guys. 22, we had the Bears down a spot. This really sucks for the Bears because they were a glove away from probably winning that football game. Their field goal attempt to take the lead, like the game winner, got blocked by a glove. The glove skimmed the football, which was enough to cause it to not make it. And that was a great game by the Bears. They, were doing everything they needed to on offense. And it just sucks that they weren't able to get it done. However, that's kind of the world we live in, where one play could decide the game. And unfortunately for the Bears, that one play happened to be not in their favor. 21, we got the Saints up 2 spots. There's not a whole lot to talk about. Taysom Hill went off, getting 3 total touchdowns. MVS scoring another touchdown. The Saints look like they could make a late push for a playoff spot. And it's not out of the question. However, they are in a really tough spot considering their best path is winning the division, which they are 2.5 games behind. However, I mean, if the cards fall into the right place, they could theoretically make it. It sucks that, winning out is a huge ask for them, and it might not even be enough. But they are looking red hot right now, and I think if they're able to keep this up, they will have a good chance of making the playoffs. The big thing is if they can keep it up, because I do believe one loss and they're pretty much out. I feel like the NFC is pretty much set, besides whoever wins the NFC West. And unfortunately for the Saints, you're not in the West. So, yeah. Number 20, we had the Bengals. They're going to be going down 4 spots. Really tough world for the Bengals because yet again, they scored a decent amount of points. 27. Yet it was not enough to get the win as they allowed 34. And that's what really sucks about them is you see these stats they put on offense. With Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase having MVP and Offensive Player of the Year type vibes, and they're 4-7. And a big part of that is obviously the defense. You can't allow 34 points and expect to win. It's just kind of how it is. And what really sucks is these guys having potential career years, and it's not going to even matter come January. And for the Bengals, I mean, they're do or die now. They're 4-7. They're kind of in the same boat as the Saints, where they look really good, but they're also one loss away from pretty much being out of it. So, Bengals are going to need a miracle. 19, we have the Colts. They're going to go up a spot. They pick up a nice come-from-behind win, 28-27 against Jets. And again, where Anthony Richardson looked like he had a career game, scoring 3 total touchdowns. It was one of those games that both teams looked really good from what they, have been playing like. And it really sucks that one of them had to lose. Thankfully for the Colts, it wasn't them. And with that, they're able to not only keep their playoff hopes alive, but they're in a really good spot. So I do believe they will have a chance to, compete for a playoff spot come January. Number 18, we have the Buccaneers. They're going to be going down a spot. Now, they were on a bye week, but a team is jumping them. That's why, I have them here. Number 17, we have the Falcons down 5 spots. They have been just on the downward spiral. I mean, I don't remember the score. It was like 38-6. I don't think they're going to make really a run in the playoffs. I mean, considering how the NFC South is right now, I do think they have a great chance to just straight up win that division because it's not very powerful as long as they're able to honestly just win half their games. And I think unless they're able to really turn it around, because it's kind of one of those where they look really good one week, look not so good the next. Unless they're able to figure out the consistency, I don't think we're going to be talking about them as a serious contender come January. Number 16, we have the 49ers. They're going to be down a spot. Number 15, we had the Seahawks going up 4 spots. Now, the Seahawks had a late win against the 49ers. It was 20-17. Geno Smith with like 13 seconds left running into the end zone. And I do believe both these teams are in a really tough situation because it's kind of the same thing I mentioned where I think the NFC is set besides whoever wins the NFC South. Now, perfectly enough for both these teams, they're in the NFC South. However, they're also the bottom 2 teams. It really sucks to be talking about that. Say, you're looking at an outside chance at a wild card, especially for the 49ers who are playing the 7-seeded Packers this week. A loss would, I feel like, depending on what happens with all the other NFC West teams, pretty much eliminate them. So I think it's really going to come down to, how well that NFC West does, because I think all 4 of these teams have a really great chance, and it sucks that only one of them is going to be able to make it. What I see that year the Commanders won the East, where none of them had a winning record. I think this is very well going to be the same type of season where they're all 8-9, 9-8. 14, we have the Rams. They're going to be going up 4 spots with a nice one over the Patriots. They are kind of in the same boat. They did play the Packers earlier, who are the 7th seed, and they lost. So they're 2.5 games behind where, the 49ers are only 2. I do believe the Rams are in a much better situation, though, because they still have to play the Cardinals once. They already hold the tiebreaker over the Seahawks and 49ers, albeit they still have to play them, I believe, all of them again still. I think this division is going to really be a big one, and I think whoever wins it is going to be in a really great spot come the playoffs with that home game. And I do believe that, they are one of the better teams, albeit their records don't say it. The Rams, however, I just feel like, especially with their dynamic duo back, really great spot. 13, we have the Texans. They're going to be going up a spot. They ended up winning 34-10 over the Cowboys in a game where they never really won that game until the 4th quarter, 20-10 at the end of the 3rd. And the Cowboys were keeping in it. Now, a big thing to note is Joe Mixon went off 150 yards, 3 touchdowns, so big respect to him. And it's kind of the same thing with the Falcons, where I don't know how big of a threat they're going to be come January because of how inconsistent they've looked, but they're probably going to be there considering the big lead they have on their division, 2.5 games for them. Number 12, we had the Broncos up a spot. They looked amazing, 38-6 win over the Falcons. The only issue is it's kind of the same thing, where they have looked super inconsistent. Now, the bright side for the Broncos is they have been starting to heat up. They barely lose to the, at the time, undefeated Chiefs. They pick up a big win over the Falcons. It's looking like all the momentum is going to be going in their favor ever since that loss to the Ravens. It looks like they've had a wake-up call. And if they're able to do what I think they're capable of, they could be one of the scariest 7 seeds I think we'll see. Number 11, we have the Chargers. They're going to be staying the same. They ended up picking a nice win over the Bengals, 34-27, in a game that they were once leading 27-6. So the big concern is you allowed the Bengals to almost come back. However, you didn't. So I think that's a big thing for you guys. The very bright news is you have such a big lead in terms of, making the playoffs and missing it. 3 games with 6 games to go, that's legit. You win half, you're in. And I do believe you will do that. So, Chargers, you're looking in a great spot. I don't know how you're going to do come January because, well, it's still a new head coach, albeit he has had NFL experience and head coaching NFL experience and Super Bowl and playoff. You guys could be really fine. I just don't know. 10, we have the Cardinals staying the same. They were on a bye week. 9, we have the Packers staying the same. They barely beat the Bears 21-20 in a game that, they honestly looked pretty good on offense. The big issue was their defense. They did really well containing the pass. However, the run, they couldn't really stop. And it wasn't like the run, it was the fact that Caleb Williams was running the football. And it kind of made them have to be like, well, do we want to defend the running back or the quarterback? And when they were doing the pass protection, they were doing so well that they were just allowing Caleb Williams to scramble for those yards. And I do think that could be an issue because that, in my opinion, was really the first scrambling quarterback the Packers have played since Jalen Hurts. And, well, we saw what happened in that game. They ended up losing. So, I think the Packers need to find something to do against scrambling quarterbacks because, well, when you look at it, the Commanders, the Cardinals, and the Eagles, all projected playoff teams, have scrambling quarterbacks. Number 8, we have the Commanders. They're going to be going down a spot. They ended up losing their game 26-18. So a really respectable game by them. However, they weren't able to get it done. It did ultimately lead to them losing the game. And I do think we're starting to see the Commanders kind of get figured out because this is now 2 games in a row they lost, albeit against really great teams and by 1 score for both of them. However, they're also just losing those games, and I know I'm going to sound like a broken record saying losing those games, but the Commanders have by no means clinched a playoff spot. Yes, they're in a very favorable position. Does not mean they've clinched that spot. Also, I've been saying the Packers were the 7th seed. I just realized they're the 6th, and the Commanders are the 7th seed, so a little hope for the NFC West as well, that, even closer. 7, we have the Vikings up a spot. There's not much to really talk about in their game besides the Dolphins situation where they kind of got out to that lead and they never looked back. They didn't look the greatest, however, they were winning that game. They never really had any issues. Sam Darnold, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He looked really good in that game, and I think the Vikings are starting to figure it out. They have suffered some very heartbreaking losses with the Rams and Lions, but, I mean, you look, we're potentially a face mask call away and really just 1 play difference away in both of those games from the Vikings potentially still being undefeated. And I think, that holds a lot to be said. And I do think that they could be a serious threat. And they have certainly looked the part. 6, Ravens down a spot. 5, Steelers up a spot. The Steelers ended up beating the Ravens 18-16. That's why I'm going off of both of them. In a game where it was really iffy by both sides. It was a defense wins championships kind of game, and the Steelers' defense is the better defense, and they won that game. I do believe there is a bright spot for both of these teams because, well, the Steelers now hold a 2.5 game lead over the Ravens, and the Ravens, well, even though they're kind of slowly but surely falling down the playoff picture, they are, by no means an easy team to beat. They still have, in my opinion, the MVP favorite, and I do think if they're able to, play how they've done in the regular season in January, they could, like I said with the Broncos, be one of the scariest 7 or 6 seeds we ever see. I don't know what's happened, but we're just going to kind of ignore this, and we're not even going to try reloading because, like I said, my phone's been having problems. But number 4, we have the Chiefs down 3 spots. Their loss really sucks compared to the number 3 Bills, who are up a spot. The Bills won that game 30-21. Josh Allen put the team on his back like Greg Jennings and won that football game. And, well, for the Chiefs, you finally lost, which I think is a blessing in disguise because you're still the 1 seed even after that. And now you don't have to hold the can we finish the season undefeated, type of chip. Now it's just let's win the Super Bowl. So, yeah. Number 2, we have the Eagles up a spot. Number Lions, we have up a spot. They both look easily like the top 2 teams. I'm really excited to see both these teams play each other. If they do, I don't remember if they do or not. I think they will meet in the playoffs regardless, though. I think these are the top 2 teams in the league, with the Bills kind of being that close third. Although I do feel like the AFC has been a bit easier than the NFC this year. It feels weird to say that. But yeah, that is going to do it. I hope you guys enjoyed. I did. I'll see you guys next time with predictions. Goodbye. Hope you enjoyed.